Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook Live. We are here from Tiara International, and I'm a global partner of Tiara International, where we offer women's leadership development and coaching, and we work with individuals and corporations around the world. And I am delighted to be here today with Amy Riley. And I'm Alison Miller, and I live in Los Angeles. Amy's in Chicago, and we are here today to talk with you and give you a preview of an upcoming leadership intensive that we are leading called Parenting from the Heart. And Amy and I are both parents. We both have two children, each have a boy and a girl. And we were actually just talking about how we haven't lived in the same city for about 8 years. But it's interesting for us to both see that as the years have gone on, we've both come to some similar conclusions and ideas about how we really want to parent. And that's what today we're going to talk with you about is, how do we parent in a way where we feel conscious and connected to how we really want to show up as a parent, the kind of human being that we want to be in the lives of our children, and how that impacts the choices that we make and how we work with our kids and partner with them to help them, launch as successful adults. And I think anyone who's listening to this who's a parent knows that it is one of the most challenging roles that you can have in your life. And so next week on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, we are going to be offering a free leadership intensive for anybody who's interested in learning how you can parent more from the heart and in a way where you feel really connected to who you really are, and that you're able to consciously choose over and over and over again, one moment to the next, how you show up as a parent, how you speak, the energy you convey, and how you operate. And I know that's not an easy thing to do. It's also an extraordinary opportunity. And the truth is that for most of us, parenting is bringing up some of our own kind of wounds. And so parenting is a great opportunity for healing and transformation and growth. It really is truly extreme, true leadership development. And if you can develop yourself as a parent, you probably can develop yourself as a leader in actually, honestly, any realm of your life. So Amy, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Yeah, thank you for doing a fabulous job kicking off our Facebook Live preview here of what we've got in store for you next Thursday. Like Alison said, with our Parenting from the Heart Leadership Intensive. And yeah, we're not kidding. It's be an intense role at times. So I'm proud to be a leadership coach, a Tiara coach. Really enjoy working with moms to help them intentionally be leaders across all areas of their lives. And of course, parenting is a really important leadership role for all of us parents. I'm also the author of Loving the Pregnant You. I share some stories in that book about how moms made choices that really work for them, for their pregnancy and their parenting. So happy to be involved in this program about choice. Alison, one of the concepts that we're going to be sharing next week is this metaphor about emitting carbon versus clean energy. Can you explain what we're talking about there with carbon and clean energy and how this relates to parenting from the heart?
Yeah, I think the metaphor, hopefully, that people can relate to, and that is that if you think about when we walk through our lives and we walk through our homes and how we parent, how we interact with others, in any moment, you could say that we're either emitting an energy that's more of a carbon energy, for about 200 years now, we've been burning fossil fuels, to heat our homes and power our cars and travel around the world and all the things that we, power farm equipment. And while that carbon energy can get the job done, I can walk into my kids' rooms and yell and scream and get them to clean their rooms, right? And while it might have an effect, it also has side effects. It pollutes, right? So carbon energy, and we know we're in carbon energy when we're emitting more of a carbon energy when what goes on is people get upset and triggered, people don't do what you want, or it's done with anger or resentment. There's some kind of collateral damage from how you're choosing to parent. And the thing about carbon energy is that when you emit carbon energy as a parent, not only do the people in your house have to live in that pollution, but so do you, you know?
Yeah.
So the alternative is to think about over the last 50 years, we've started to develop ways of powering, vehicles and homes, et cetera, with cleaner energy like wind and solar. I actually have solar panels on my house. And when we move through our life, we are able to be connected to ourselves and make a conscious choice about, for example, how do I want to respond when my child drops a glass on the ground and it breaks, versus how would I react? And when I react, I'm much more likely to emit carbon or polluting energy. But when I'm connected to, oh, my child dropped a glass, how do I want to show up in this moment? Maybe I want to show up with some tenderness or some, don't worry, honey, it's okay, I'll help you clean it up kind of energy. That's a much cleaner energy. It doesn't leave behind pollution. So it can be really helpful as a parent to start to observe yourself and notice what's going on when you emit a cleaner versus a more polluting energy.
Yeah, yeah. When am I emitting one versus the other, and what's happening as a result of both of those?
Exactly.
And I know, Alison, as
Amy, about I can think of like 100 as soon as I say the metaphor.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to share with everyone, that's something that Alison and I have been doing as we've been preparing for the Leadership Intensive next week. We've been bringing together the concepts and sharing our own stories. It's one of our beliefs in Tiara that we're in this with the folks that we're sharing these concepts with. So it's one of our practices to practice what we preach and be in the program with others, if you will. So Alison and I have been sharing our own examples with one another of what we notice when we can become aware in the moment that, hey, this is carbon energy here. And what are we doing? What do we access when we're able to shift that energy to something cleaner? And I know we both have examples to share. Would you like to start, Alison?
Well, I'm just thinking of one that was a very small one that was interesting. So my son had a friend over on a Saturday afternoon, and they were in the kitchen, they were cooking, and they were eating raspberries right out of the container. And when I walked into the kitchen, I noticed immediately that there were a few raspberries that had made it onto the floor and that had then been stepped on by them.
Yeah.
And I've been practicing emitting clean energy long enough that somehow what came out of me was I said, oh, some raspberries on the floor. And I turned around and looked at them and I saw how much fun they were having. And I said out loud, I'll just clean them up. Because I didn't want to pollute that. I didn't want to say, Aiden. And so after I said, I'll just clean them up, his friend said to me, what? That's it? That's all you're going to say? You're going to clean them up? She was shocked because she said, if that had happened in my house, my mother would have started screaming and yelling. And I asked her, I said, well, what's that like for you? She said, well, I hate it. And I especially hate it because I feel like I'm not allowed to make a mistake. And it's really embarrassing when she yells at me in front of my kids. I mean, in front of my friends. You know what I'm saying? So it, she, in a way, what she said to me was was an affirmation of like, that was a good choice. Right. Now I could later, if it felt important to me, say to him, well, actually, let me give you a different example. So yesterday, my son came home from school with 3 friends and I was out. And so he was already home with his friends. They were in the hot tub, right? He and his buddy and his 2 girlfriends, 13 years old, in the hot tub, right? After school. And they had obviously like just been very hungry when they came home. And there was lots of evidence of eating in multiple rooms in my house and cushions turned over and very little cleaned up. And so this time I definitely felt a little more heat and anger inside myself about it, but I chose to not go outside and pollute his experience in the moment. And I didn't want to speak because I wasn't ready yet. And I waited until later when I could say to him, I said, hey, did you have fun with your friends after school? He said, yeah. I said, those are really great kids. Seemed like you guys were having a great time. He said, yeah. And then I said, there's one thing that I want to talk to you about having friends over. And then I just said, I observed, I told him what I observed, and I have a request. And he was like, that's totally reasonable, Mom. I get it. Thank you. See, I actually feel like I was more effective because I let the carbon move through me and I let
Yeah.
myself sort of digest it before I interacted with him. And I don't think if I screamed and yelled at him and polluted, that he would have heard me. And this problem will be more likely to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. It's interesting to hear those couple of examples. And I do want to point out that in order to admit clean energy, it doesn't mean that we have to clean up after all the kids' messes, right?
Yeah.
Like Allison could have chosen in those moments to ask people to stop and clean up, right? There's lots of different ways to emit the clean energy,
exactly. You
right?
can do it in all kinds of ways. And for me, I felt like knowing my son and how he operates, the cleanest way I could do it was to talk to him about it for next time. Because
Yeah.
he and his friends went through this phase where they're obsessed with making slime. And we had one incident where there was like total disrespect of me. And after his friends left, I said, I just want to let you know, bud, I know you love making slime. You get one more chance to make it. But if I have an experience like I had today, you're not going to make slime anymore. And you know what? He heard me.
Yeah.
Like, no, this doesn't work. But being able to say it in a way where they can hear you.
Absolutely.
By the way, I have blown that probably more times than I've succeeded at it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's normal and natural, right? Well, and I hear in each of those instances your commitment to not pollute the awesome energy that was going on with your son and his friends.
Correct.
Right? The commitment to not pollute that.
Yeah.
When we were talking about this, I didn't have to look too far for an example of emitting carbon energy.
Right.
I had gone there big time the week before. My example is also about my son. We don't mean to be picking on the sons today, but my most recent example happens to be, well, maybe not my most recent, my most intense recent example had to do with a Boy Scout ceremony and dinner. I had told my son that he could be on the phone watching a video with his friends gathered around until the ceremony started. And then I wanted him to get off the phone. Well, the ceremony starts and I look over and I see he's still holding the phone in front of him and I can see the friend's eyes are still on the phone. So I pause a second. And then my ego probably got in the way because I started to see a Cub Scout leader walking over and I'm like, oh crap, now I am the mom whose son is distracting himself and others with the phone. So I go over there, I take the phone and I give him a look, right? I am not happy. He follows me back to the table and he's like, what? I couldn't bring the phone to you because my leader had started talking. And so then we started getting into an argument. I'm like, there was lots of things you could have done. You could have put the phone down. Like, obviously you didn't turn it off. So we're getting into an argument. I say, let's do this later. Sit down with us. Then he didn't want to sit with us. He wanted to go back with his friends. I got triggered. I was mad. And I was like, why am I here? So I literally picked up my plate of food because evidently I wasn't leaving that behind. And I walk out the door. So luckily, I have these concepts on my radar, and I stood there in the hallway, feeling foolish, and certainly looking foolish, standing there holding my plate of food, thinking, all right, starting to come out of the reactionary mode, becoming aware of the carbon energy that I had just emitted, and being able to come to a place of choice. Okay, so here I am in the hallway with my plate of food. What do I want to do now? And honestly, I'll tell you, Allison, and everybody else listening, I don't know if I made the right choices in that moment. None of them felt that great. Like, I didn't really want to go back in. I really didn't want to leave out the door the way that I had. What I decided to do was go back into the room, say to my husband, I'm sorry, I will make this up to you. Say to my daughter, I'm going to go. Would you like to leave as well? And say to my son, I love you. I am going to go, and we can talk about this later. And everybody nodded. And my son and I were talking about this yesterday. He gave me permission to share this story. And he said, that's right. You did tell me you loved me. And he said, we were able to turn things around later. And that's what was created. It wasn't totally clean energy. It was cleaner energy. I don't know to this day if I made the right choice to leave. What I did make possible was a calm, lighthearted conversation where my son and I, when he got home, we had an exchange of ideas, right? What he could have done differently, what I could have done differently, how we want to be clearer with each other in the future, and we had a terrific, tearful conversation, that ended with some snuggles. And if I hadn't paused in that hallway with my plate of food, that might not have been possible.
Yeah. There's so many good things in what you said, and I just want to highlight something I think so important is that whenever there are conversations, books, blogs, something like this about parenting, I think a lot of times the message that's given is that there's a right way to parent and a wrong way to parent. And I just, first of all, want to be honest, Amy and I are actually not representing ourselves as parenting experts. I think that really our message is more about how do we come back to ourselves and know ourselves and consciously choose how we want to show up for the particular children that we have. And just to remember that we can awaken as parents. We can be more and more awake. So I think of this idea of carbon versus clean energy as the idea of parenting with cleaner energy is an aspiration. It's not a goal. It's not something that you achieve. There's not a right way or one way or the best way to do it. It's really an aspiration of how do I move through my life? And if you think about it, in my workplace, in my family, in my community, when I walk in and order a cup of coffee, how I deal with somebody when I have to be on the phone with the phone company, because that's a place where I get super triggered. Just to be honest, right?
Yes.
When I go to the doctor's office, when I'm on the highway and there's traffic, what is it that I aspire to have emit from me, in terms of who I am in this short time I'm on earth? What's the energy that I want to move through life with? Knowing that being a human being who's incredibly vulnerable and who struggles with emotions and tensions in the body and stress hormones and all that stuff, that, gosh, there's some carbon in there. Someone said to me the other day, what do you do when you're dealing with another person who's highly carbonated, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes our kids come home from school and they're carbonated, right? Yeah. They're polluting. And I teach a class at a local high school, and one of the students asked me the other day, she said, how do I de-escalate a situation if everyone else is escalating around me? And my first answer to the question was, first and foremost, try not to pollute. Don't pollute. Because we use the same metaphor in that class. Don't put that pollution into it. Don't escalate further. And that's what you're talking about, is that moment where you almost grabbed yourself in the hall and caught yourself. And that requires, the second thing I want to say is really important, is it requires you to step out of the shadow of the shame.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we pollute, we tend to go to a place of shame, and then we sort of pollute inward. And we can't acknowledge that wasn't a great parenting moment for me.
Yeah. And the shame can take over. I felt it. I felt the shame and the embarrassment in that moment. And it can take over and have us now get angry. And now we need to defend what we've just done, right? And keep going on the reactionary, ego-based
double
path.
Down. I'm
in it now, right? Well, I've already made things dirty, so I might as well just keep going.
If anyone who's listening to this, if you've ever been trying to lose weight, and then you go to a party, and let's say you take a few bites of cheesecake, there's that moment where you say, F it, whatever, and you just kind of let it go, the
Yeah.
intention you had to be healthy that day. And I think that what you just described is the exact same thing that happens in parenting, where we've polluted and we've crossed the threshold where we're like, whatever. And then we just like give ourselves permission to just let it rip. And it's,
Yeah.
of course, really terrible for the people that are on the receiving end of that, but it's also really terrible for us.
Yeah.
But it
Indeed.
happens.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
Yep. Yep. Another thing we talked about, Alison, as we were creating the content for next week's Parenting from the Heart session. This is a preview, a live Facebook preview for those of you who are just joining us for a 75-minute session that we will hold next Thursday. We'll give you all the details before we stop this broadcast. But another thing we were talking about as we were preparing for that, Alison, is the power of an apology.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's a great point, Amy, is I want to give you an example of one of the components of what we're going to do next week to support you and to support all of us, right, as a community of parents around the world in emitting cleaner energy and less carbon energy. And by the way, the consciousness and the choice to do this is how you contribute to peace on our planet. Every moment that you emit a cleaner energy, it's a good thing for not just your immediate family, but for our world, I believe.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Amy and I wanted to share with all of you, like at least one tool that you would feel like you have to walk away with. And so one of the ones that we think is particularly powerful is the power of apologizing. So when you pollute and you emit carbon energy, it's very powerful to go back to your child and say, something like, hey, when I was in your room earlier and I was yelling at you, I want to let you know I apologize for behaving that way.
Yeah.
And I wasn't parenting in a way that really feels good to me. What I wish I had done differently is I wish I had knocked on your door and asked permission to come in. And I wish I'd made eye contact with you and said hello and checked in first and gotten your permission to talk about something that's bothering me.
Yeah.
Right. That's very different than, the storming the barn doors and, screaming and yelling, when you catch your kid completely. And what you do is you sort of blow their nervous system when you do that, when you do that kind of thing. So, and I think there's something really powerful is acknowledging what happened, taking responsibility for it, saying the words, I apologize. I think that's very powerful. It's more powerful than saying, I'm sorry. I apologize for having done the following thing. What I wish I had done differently is, and that's a key part of the apology, because what you're now doing is you're healing, because you're now doing what you were not capable of doing earlier. You're healing a child, you're healing yourself, and you are creating a mental script in a way for yourself in the future that when something's going on, that you could be like, oh yeah, remember that thing I said I would do? What I wish I had done? That's what I'm going to try to do now. So it can be very, very healing. And the key is what you said, Amy, is that you have to step out of the shame, because the shame will trigger your ego, and then you won't be willing to apologize. It doesn't mean your child is right for what they did, but it means you're taking responsibility for your own pollution.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, for what we're emitting. Yeah.
And we're going to learn a lot more tools just like that. And Amy, you can share with people, the details on the upcoming preview and what we have to offer.
Yeah. If you're interested in hearing more, or you'd like some support in your leadership role as parenting, we have 3 offers for you. So one is, this is a preview for next Thursday's session. That's May 10th. That is going to be at 8 a.m. Alison's time, Pacific time. It'll be at 10 a.m. Central time. That's my time. So translate to wherever you are in the globe, and join us for a 75-minute leadership intensive, Parenting from the Heart. And like we said, we don't have a specific parenting checklist to go through with you. We have some concepts, some intentions, some of that higher level guidance, if you will. This is a free event. If you're on Facebook right now, you can go to the Tiara International page and look up the events, and you'll get the details to register there. You can register directly on the Tiara website, which is tiara-leadership.com. If you go to the calendar, that's the easy place to see it. It's the next event listed. Also, we have a coaching package offering for all of you, a 3-session coaching package. So if there's a particular parenting desire or question or concern that is just swirling and lingering there a little bit longer than you'd like, and you'd like some specific coaching support around that, we have a limited time offer around Mother's Day here, Parenting from the Heart coaching package. And you can find that on the Tiara website as well. And then third, we'd offer for you to contact us. You can reach out to us through the Facebook page, or I'm A. Riley at tiaracoaching.com. Alison is A. Miller.
tiaracoaching.com.
Yeah, and we would love to hear from you, and we would love to see you next week at the Parenting from the Heart Leadership Intensive.
Yeah, this is, I think of it as, it's really, you know, for those of you who are listening who are mothers out there, this is a great free mother's gift, actually, Mother's Day gift to give to yourself. And we hope that you will join us. We would love to have you be there with us.
Great.